So tonight, 12 candidates on stage. It's going to be tough for a lot of people to get a word in, and I think it's 12 candidates, 3 hours. You're looking at roughly 10 minutes per person. But I think tonight, look for Cory to make his message really about unity, bringing people together. He talks about this a lot on the campaign trail that you've seen, justice for all. Through common pain comes common purpose. I think that is really what you're going to hear from him tonight, and he's going to lean on his mayoral and Senate record to showcase that. I mean, he's someone that has worked across the aisle to get things done. I mean, he worked with someone that he has nothing in common with, Lindsey Graham, to pass criminal justice reform and get that signed by the president into law. But he's also not going to let his democratic values go, and he's going to talk about being a progressive Democrat on stage. So I would really look for him to talk about unity and bringing people together on the stage tonight.
So recently, Mayor Buttigieg made a comment about gun buybacks programs essentially being confiscation. We saw that Senator Booker criticized him for that. Do you expect that, there to be any sort of, confrontation, or Senator Booker to bring this up? We know that, there are a lot of other candidates that are wrangling to be in that top 3 position. So how will Senator Booker use that to go after maybe another candidate like Senator Buttigieg or Mayor Buttigieg?
So Cory is the only candidate in this race that lives in a low-income Black and Brown community where he actually can and has heard gunshots at night. He has had kids come up to him and tell him that they're afraid on the 4th of July because they mistake the fireworks for gunshots. He's the only one on that stage that lives in that kind of environment, and so gun violence and the issue of gun violence is really personal to him. So I think when he saw what Mayor Pete was talking about, you're using the NRA talking points. Cory was the first candidate in this race to introduce the idea of gun licensing. He believes if you need a license to drive a car, you should need a license to own a gun. And he's really pushed the field to adopt gun licensing as part of their programs. I mean, you're seeing people like Mayor Pete, like Beto O'Rourke, endorsing that plan. So I don't think Cory's going to shy away from making his views heard on gun violence. And he comes from such a unique perspective to do that, that I think that is something that makes him such an important voice in this race.
So at last week's LGBTQ Forum CNN event, we saw that Congressman O'Rourke essentially said that he would be willing to take the tax exemption status away from religious organizations that didn't endorse gay marriage, essentially. And we saw that, a lot of critics said Senator Booker danced around the question. Has his stance on that been solidified, and will he speak about this more? Because we're kind of seeing that issue now gain traction after Congressman O'Rourke's answer.
Well, I think what he was saying, and I think he would say this again, is he would use every opportunity to make sure that institutions that oppose gay marriage do not necessarily receive federal funding. But at the end of the day, I mean, he is someone that has fought for LGBTQ rights from back when he was mayor. I mean, he refused to marry people until LGBTQ men and women had their rights to marry in the state of New Jersey and in Newark. So Cory's always going to be a fighter for those rights. He's always going to be a fighter for equality. And I think it is an important debate, and I hope it does come up on the debate stage, because at the end of the day, we're talking on these debates a lot about healthcare, but often women's reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights, they don't necessarily get the attention that they deserve.
Right. And essentially, how is the fundraising situation with the campaign right now? We know it's been a topic of conversation, and we know that he's been able to get over that hurdle, but what's the strategy like going forward into 2020?
We know that we have to remain competitive, and we have to have the resources that we need to keep our organization growing and functional. So we actually feel really good where we are. Look, we might never be a billionaire that can self-fund our campaign, but we are so happy and proud with the grassroots support that we have seen from, the 10-day challenge when we asked folks to help us raise $1.7 million. We ended up exceeding over $2 million. So there's a lot of support for Cory out there, and people see his voice as really important in this race. So we just need to keep communicating that. We need to make sure that his message of justice for all keeps getting out there. And we might not always be the candidate that's raising the most money, but we certainly are going to keep, being competitive with others.
And speaking of billionaires, this is Tom Steyer's first debate tonight. What does your campaign think about how his campaign has raised money? And, they have been successful in getting him on the debate stage when he just joined the trail in September. So how do you feel about the way he's been raising his money?
I won't comment specifically on how other candidates raise their money. It's certainly, we are not a self-funded campaign. Cory's out there talking to voters, everyday voters in the states and traveling across the country, not just to raise money, but to make sure that his message is heard. So while we need the resources to compete, I really feel confident that we are there. And, Tom Steyer will raise enough money for his campaign the way he needs to.
And finally, just a news of the day question. Hunter Biden gave an interview to ABC News, obviously, earlier today, and we know that the moderators will likely bring this up. How does Senator Booker, how is he preparing to face these questions about Hunter Biden? We saw that, he's been asked about, an elitist status. The son of a vice president is able to sit on this board and be defended by his father. How does Senator Booker plan to respond to that?
I think what Cory will say and what he has said is that we shouldn't focus on baseless attacks that this White House is lodging. We really need to focus on the issues that are at hand and that, Ohioans care about, or South Carolinians, or, people out in California, like all across the country, they want to hear about the issues that are affecting them, whether it's healthcare, jobs, the economy, women's rights, gun violence. That's what Cory really wants to talk about. So I think while there might be questions about that at the debate from moderators or from maybe other candidates, I think Cory's going to be the type of person and type of candidate that is always going to want to bring it back to the issues that are important for voters to hear about.